Hi everyone, thanks so much for joining our webinar today on the SAVE Fund. My name is Nicole Broder. I'm the SANE coordinator for the Oregon Sexual Assault Task Force. We're very lucky to be putting this on with the help of a grant that we have through our OVW Rural Project. And very lucky to have with us today Valerie Smith from the Oregon Department of Justice. So she'll be taking us through a little bit about what the SAVE Fund covers, kind of some common errors that come up or misconceptions, and other things about that. So please feel free to use your question tab to write in any questions that you have. I'll be monitoring that and bringing up questions as we can get to them. I've also included a copy of this PowerPoint under the handouts tab, so please feel free to use that as well. Should be a pretty short and sweet presentation today, but really good information for us all to review and make sure that we're up to date on. So thanks so much for joining us. I'm going to let Valerie introduce herself further.
Hello, this is Valerie Smith, and I have been at the Department of Justice since 2001. So I was here when the SAVE Fund started in 2004. So other than a short period of time when I went part-time, the SAVE Fund has been my job. So I've seen a lot of changes, a lot of good things have happened, and hopefully more to come. So we will just dive in from here. Okay, so services covered by the SAVE Fund. The first, we pay for the sexual assault exam, whether or not evidence is collected. The complete exam, partial exam, those terms, we just kind of made those up to differentiate between whether or not evidence was collected. We pay more for the complete exam, and later on there's a slide that shows the amounts that we pay. So that's the exam portion. So the medication, so STD prophylaxis and emergency contraception, and then a pregnancy test that used to just be a urine pregnancy test, and now that has changed. So we'll do a blood test as well, pay for either one. So that has changed a number of years ago. And then in 2016, we decided to add on a small payment amount to the physicians. That was causing a big problem. When they set up the fund, they did not chat with enough billing people to know that it was going to cause a problem. Physicians bill separately. We cannot pay one amount. So that had always been an issue. So that started in April of 2016. And at the same time, in April of 2016, we started with the counseling sessions. So they get 5 counseling sessions. We don't need notes. We will just pay for 5 off the top. So kind of try to make it as easy as we can. We did put that date, we set that date back to January 1st of 2015, and then informed all of our community partners, so advocates, if they had a survivor who had been assaulted prior to the date in 2016, that we would still give them counseling. So I don't know that anybody took advantage of it, but it was there for them if they wanted it. So those are, in a nutshell, this is all that the SAVE Fund covers. If it goes beyond this, then I will push crime victims compensation probably about 100 times in this presentation. Okay, so services not covered, and these are just examples. So basically, everything that's not on the previous slide is not covered. I see a lot of radiology, and so those providers will get a denial from me, and they can bill those to the patient. So just so you're aware that a lot of times there's a lot of services that are provided that are not covered by SAVE. And I just said that. So providers can bill them. A lot of them do not. A lot of providers will just write off the remainder of the bill, but they don't have to, and we can't make them. So I would say there are a few hospitals that actually know exactly what SAVE pays, and they will bill the victim. And I get those tearful phone calls often, and I will always try to talk to them about crime victims compensation, or we try to do what we can. But what SAVE Fund covers is actually just a small list on the previous slide. In addition to this, The only thing that is red in this entire presentation is this piece of information. So what I hear when I get those tearful phone calls is that they were told it would be covered. And obviously, victims are going in, they are in trauma mode, and they just are not thinking clearly. And what appears to be happening, or what we think is happening, is that they're being told this is covered, but whether it's the SANE or a doctor or whoever, the services that they're providing right then at that moment might be covered. But then, I don't know, an hour, 2 hours later, I feel if someone comes in and suggests, oh, let's do an x-ray, and the victim is still hearing in their head, this is covered. And so they are including everything, the radiology, the ambulance. We get ambulance bills sometimes, and those can be really high. So they hear this is covered, and they are applying it to the entire visit. So just please be careful. If you're not sure if it's covered or not, just maybe, I don't know, say this may be covered. Or again, I will push crime victims compensation, because that covers a much broader range of services. So, and if for sure that you know they will have services that aren't covered by the SAVE Fund, just let them know that, or let them know that there is another resource if they would like to apply for crime victim compensation. So
it's really good to bring this up at the beginning when you're discussing the SAVE Fund in general. And one of the ways that I like to approach this, although this is certainly not the only way, is that I'll say, I know that cost is a concern to a lot of my patients, and I want to let you know that there's a fund that covers most of the costs associated with my role here. And so I kind of lead them through that. And then I also tell them, if I see that we're going to recommend something that's outside of what the SAVE Fund covers, I will make sure to let you know first, so that you can make an informed decision about that. And so then if something comes up like pain meds, anxiety meds, maybe a CT angio, if there's strangulation, maybe a wrist x-ray if they, have a sore wrist and they're checking for things there, then I'll bring that up and say, just, as a heads up, this is not covered by the SAVE Fund. We do feel it's important for these reasons, and then kind of let them make their decision from there.
All right.
Let me get you back.
Okay, sorry. All right, so to qualify for the SAVE Fund, it basically boils down to these two things. So the assault has to occur in Oregon, and they need to have that sexual assault exam within 1 week of 7 days of the assault. So these are very important, and if these are left blank on the application and I'm not able to find that information anywhere else, I will not be able to pay it as much as I want to. So please don't leave the county of assault blank. This actually serves two purposes. It tells me that the assault occurred in Oregon. We also use this for reporting purposes, since we get our money from the federal VOCA money, and so we have to report back, and we use the county of assault for that. So multiple reasons why I need that. For the time frame, I see unknown a lot of times, and again, then I don't have any sort of way to know. Use a date range. I don't care. Give me something and I will run with it. So I will usually use just whatever is the most recent time. If you give me a range and the earlier date doesn't fall within 7 days, but the later date does, I will use it. So I really want to pay these. There we go. So this comes up a lot, and survivors do not need to report to law enforcement. There's no age limit. I don't need hospital notes or a police report. We do not care about the circumstances of the crime with the SAVE Fund. So if they qualify based on what's above and I have all the information, I'm going to pay it. It basically comes down to that.
And Valerie, it looks like we have a question about whether the first dose of HIV NPEP that's given in the hospital is covered by the SAVE Fund. Can you talk a little bit more about that, please?
I don't have a good answer. Technically, yes, we are putting that under the STD umbrella, which is not nearly enough money to cover that, as we all know. So We are starting talks about this, and I have no other information to give you right now other than to let you know that we know this is an issue and we are trying to create a solution. And I guess that's it. Do you have anything else you want to add about that?
No, that's good to know. So if someone's given prophylactic medications against gonorrhea, chlamydia, bacterial vaginosis, trichomoniasis, those are kind of the usual ones that we cover. And then they're given the first dose of Truvada and Icentris. Am I correct in understanding that that will be covered, but the amount is so small that it probably won't cover the entire thing and the hospital will still send a bill?
Yes. So I am including that as being covered. So my concern would be that if a hospital were to refute that, because those charges are usually pretty high, it might be a struggle on our end. I haven't heard anything. Usually we hear from victims if they receive bills for things like that. So I'm hopeful that it's being written off, but we do know it's an issue. So, and our objective would always be to get the hospital to write off that amount until hopefully we can come up with a better solution.
Cool, thanks. I know that you guys have been working hard on this issue.
Okay. All right, so exam time frame. So with evidence collection, we'll pay up to 120 hours, 5 days post-assault, and for the partial exam, so no evidence collection up to 7 days. So if the exam is more than 7 days, there is no way for the SAFE Fund to be able to pay that. That's not a rule that I can get around. I will try my best to get around things, but I can't get around this one. So this again goes back to putting that time frame in, and if it is a range, please use the range. That if it helps me to pay it, that would be wonderful. If they're not eligible, they could get a bill, and they're also not eligible for the counseling piece. So a lot of times, I've seen a number of times where it goes past the 7 days and then they've completed that counseling portion on the second page. So that's heartbreaking to have to call and tell them that they don't get that. Again, for the third time, have them apply to CDC. I've got to get up to 100. That's what I said, right? And the other thing too, I know that for crime victims compensation, a lot of times the reporting to law enforcement has been the reason why a lot of people don't apply for that. And recent changes, and I've listed the House bill there, so House Bill 2621, are making it easier for victims of sexual assault and domestic violence and stalking to be eligible. So I'm going to just pull out my handy sheet and just read because it's too much information in my head. So this started just in January, so this is brand new. And what we've done is we've broadened good cause for failing to report, and we're willing to look at other things. So if a victim has a restraining order, a stalking order, if they've been and had a sexual assault exam, we will look at that, and they may be able to still have an accepted claim with those things. So that's without law enforcement. If they have none of it, if they have no reporting to law enforcement, they didn't have an exam, they don't have a stalking order or anything, and there's a whole list, and I can get that to you as well. We have created a very basic counseling award, so they can still get counseling. So basically, if they say they've been sexually assaulted and they have nothing with which to back it up, we will still give them counseling. So that's a new thing, and that's awesome, and on we go. Do you have anything you want to add?
No,
you're good? Okay. Okay, so for assaults that occur outside Oregon, I see these fairly regularly, so they are not eligible for the SAVE Fund, but a lot of states do have programs like SAVE. They have very different coverage, so just if it happened in another state and I'm going to be referring them to the other state, I guess I would just say don't use absolutes, please, and what will or wouldn't be covered, because it's going to be different no matter where they go. And for states that don't have a separate fund, every state has a crime victims compensation program, so that is always available. And unlike Oregon, with our new information we have, reporting to law enforcement may be required. So again, if it's been out of state, just if you want to refer them to me, that would be fine. I would be happy to talk with them about that, because it's hard to know since every state is so different. And one thing, this came up just recently. We had a couple months ago 2 applications where the assault occurred out of the country. And so I went to my manager and I said, what are we supposed to do? And she contacted someone up at the federal level and found out there are no services available to these people. So we are now going to pay those. So just so you're aware of that. So anything outside the country, the SAVE fund will pay those. Crime victims compensation is another story, and I actually don't know what they would do with that. But if anybody would like to know, I can find out, and I'm willing to do that. Okay, so here are the states that have separate sexual assault programs. And Washington, I'm looking more right now at neighboring states, because if I'm going to see an application with a different state on it, it's probably going to be California or Washington. Washington's program is amazing. They make us look terrible. They pay for the entire bill, and it's wonderful. So I have an excellent contact up there. So if the assault occurred in Washington, I'm very confident that it will be taken care of. I don't believe they have the counseling piece, but they don't have other issues as far as services not being covered. So that's wonderful. California, I see a lot of California. I also see Nevada. A lot of people go there for vacation, but if they're assaulted, they'll come home for the exam. They do not have a separate fund. So in those situations, I will refer them to the crime victim compensation program in that state. It makes it a lot harder, though. So hopefully some of these states that aren't on the list will come around, and we'll have funds like SAVE soon in some of these other states.
Do you know anything about Idaho, since that's our other border? And if you don't, that's fine. I'm just wondering.
I do not have any specifics on Idaho. I've never had a claim come up from Idaho, so I can find that out too. That's easy enough. Okay, provider billing errors. This happens a lot. So it's just something, if someone gets back to you, or if it gets back to you that someone has been billed for something that they should not have been, just get in touch with me. We will figure it out. So if the bill is for services that are not covered by the SAVE fund, obviously, once again, number 5, I will push crime victims compensation. If the bill is for services that are covered by SAVE, we will do the legwork and contact the provider to try and correct that and get them to write off those charges. We have actually paid extra on claims. There are a couple providers that we struggle with their billing department, and we have paid more, because if a victim has services that are covered by the SAVE fund, it's not the patient's responsibility to pay for those, and so we will cover those, and we will do what we have to do to pay for them. So know that. And then again, if they're not covered, we'll work with a victim and try to figure out ways to help them with that. So our newer counseling benefit, everyone who's eligible for the SAVE fund gets 5 counseling sessions with a licensed counselor. Licensed is the key word there, because a lot of them are not. We copied basically all of the information from crime victims compensation. So the same payment amounts and all of that. So counseling mirrors comp, if you know anything about that. They have 18 months to use those sessions. And what happens is I get the information from the hospital with the SAVE application and the bill, and then I will contact the victim with information about the counseling. This is just an example of what I send to each victim about the counseling. So this is just their information page. I do list in the middle. You can see there with every notification that I send, they get the phone number for their local victim assistance office, and also whatever nonprofit may be in their area that could help them find counseling. A lot of them do not have counselors and they need help finding it. So we have a slight issue with this notification system because of the way the SAVE Fund was set up. It's not the victim that's applying. It's kind of like the hospital is not really applying, but sending the information. So based on that and the fact that providers have up to 1 year to bill the SAVE Fund, you can obviously see there's going to be an issue with victims getting information in a timely manner about the counseling. So what we've started doing is if they call us, if they hear about or get my number from somebody and call me, their advocate can call me. I don't require that the victim talk to me personally. I will talk to whoever they want me to talk to, and I will set up a claim based on the information from them or their advocate. So it's a little bit backwards, but if they need that counseling sooner rather than later, which most people probably do, then that just gets them the help that they need sooner. So please feel free to give out my information to anyone, basically, and I will help them with the counseling piece.
And Valerie's contact information is going to be at the end of this PowerPoint as well. So know that that's coming.
All right, our maximum payment amounts. Don't get mad at me. I know they're low. So there they are. There's not much to say about it. These amounts have not been raised since the fund started. We did add the physician fee, and obviously the counseling can add on a huge amount because of how much some counselors can charge. So anyway, it is what it is. I keep fighting for more, but there's a budget. So there you go.
A couple of things that I've heard questions about. The first one is when people are taking so many antibiotics at once, especially with hormones of emergency contraception, they can get pretty sick to their stomach. Do you cover medication like Zofran or Phenergan to help keep patients from being nauseated?
Yes, those just recently, well, that was been a year or two ago that we met and we talked about that. So we did start to include those as being a covered medication. So yes, those would be covered under the SAVE Fund.
And then the other one, I know that you were actually the proactive one and brought this up to me, but I'm not actually sure the status of it right now, is that the lidocaine that's often given with the shot of Rocephin, which can be a very painful shot otherwise, is that covered or?
So yes, we included that as well. I'm trying to think I think we included that we were possibly going to put it under the exam, but we did it with the STD prophylaxis only because some providers actually don't max out of that. So we wanted to put it somewhere where they would get it a little more money, if at all possible. So this probably, as far as the SANEs go, probably doesn't have much to do with your job. But if somebody has any questions, this is just how the provider billing works, but this is kind of more for billing department sort of a thing. So they just send the SAVE Fund application form with a bill, and it needs to be an itemized bill because SAVE has, what we cover is limited, so I need to be able to see an itemized bill, and they just send it to the Department of Justice, and I get it and process it from there. We have 60 days to process SAVE applications. My goal is to have them processed within 2 weeks. I think the only time about last fall, we had a huge influx of applications and we were pushing up against maybe 45, 50 days, but that's the only time I really try to get them processed within a couple of weeks. And it's, for the most part, that's very doable. So, and at the bottom, if the form was not completed or partially completed, call me or have a billing person call me. I do not require that. That sounds bad, but I will look at hospital notes. I really want to pay these. I will find the information another way if I have to. So obviously the SAVE application, all the information is there and I can get those processed so fast anymore after all these years. But I'm willing to do it from other sources if I need to. So please call if that ever happens. Oh, that's it. Oh my goodness, I'm done. So one other thing I wanted to say is I am the only person who processes the Save Fund payments in our office. So this contact information is just all Save Fund related. So you don't need to remember a bunch of different names. I will say too that we created a separate email for the Save Fund, but my personal one, the Valerie.Smith email, that one is obviously open and on my desktop all day long. So if you just want to contact me, that's probably the best way to do it. And I think that's it.
Yeah, if you all have any questions, please go ahead and just type it into the question box. This is a great opportunity while Valerie is here with us. While you guys are doing that, I just wanted to mention that, as usual, we will be sending out CEU certificates after the fact. I know it was short and sweet. You still get a whole CEU. I know it's very exciting. That can take us a couple of weeks, but we will get those emailed out to the email addresses that you registered with. And then for those of you who may be watching this on our website after the fact, there will be a post test included in the link that you followed, and you can go ahead and fill that out again to get CEU credits. Otherwise, we'll stick around for a few minutes to see if any questions pop up. But besides that, thank you so much for attending today. We promised short and sweet, and hey, we covered all the important stuff, so I have no problem with that. But yeah, please feel free to throw in any questions that you have, and otherwise, thanks so much for joining us today.